President Trump is celebrating the election of the first American pope, but not everyone in MAGA world seems to be happy with Pope Leo XIV. Before Cardinal Robert Francis Prevost became pope, a social media account posting under his name shared critical views of the Vice President J.D. Vance. In February, the account shared this article criticizing his interpretation of the Christian doctrine, calling it, quote, wrong. Last month, the account posted a tweet claiming that Trump and El Salvador's president laughing about the deportation of migrants there, seeming to criticize that. And in 2020, the account reposted a bishop who said he was praying for George Floyd and his family. Far-right activist and a huge Trump ally, Laura Loomer, took issue with that. She responded today with this quote in all caps, Marxist Pope. I'll note, CNN has not independently confirmed that that X account is connected to Prevost, who was elected the 267th Pope today. Joining me tonight is the Democratic Senator Tim Kaine of Virginia. And Senator, just first, as an American and as a Catholic, what does it mean to you to see the first American Pope elected? Were you surprised?
Caitlin, I was surprised. I was surprised at his story, and it was emotional. When you are as a Catholic and you hear that there's white smoke, you're on the edge of your seat. But this particular Pope, Pope Leo XIV, his background, born in Chicago, went to Villanova University, joined the Augustinian order. Much of his priestly life and service has been in Peru. I was a missionary with Jesuits in Honduras back in the early 80s, so somebody who went and worked in Latin America as a priest reminds me of so many of the missionaries I worked with. And then his work with Pope Francis to select bishops and cardinals was a powerful thing, and I think that may be one of the reasons he was chosen. He had gotten to know the cardinals well. And then the other thing for Catholics is choosing the name Pope Leo. Pope Leo XIII was a very, very, well-regarded pope in the latter half of the 1800s who spoke very passionately about the rights of working people, everyday people. And so to have this first American choose Pope Leo as his name sends a very strong message about the Pope he would like to be. And I also think it's a message of continuity with the path that Pope Francis was treading. I look forward to my continuing journey as a Catholic under the leadership of Pope Leo XIV.
Yeah, and given that Villanova background, maybe the first Pope to have filled out a March Madness bracket. We'll see what he says about that. But on the front of both of your shared experiences being missionaries, I wonder what that says to you about how he will handle this role.
I think he's a guy who early in his life to be a priest got out of his comfort zone and went to a place where, he might not have known many and might not have known the language, but he made it not just a temporary home, but years and years and years. I think in at least 3 different chapters in his life, he was in Peru. That makes him a citizen of the world. That makes him somebody who understands deeply why people migrate. It makes him understand the needs of poor people and how the poor often find such deep solace and resilience in their faith. That was the eye-opening experience for me, a kid from suburban Kansas City when I went to work in Honduras in 1980 and 81, is being put into a different environment and seeing how people relied so deeply on their faith to get them through the adversities of life. He will have experienced that, and that'll give him a deep well of compassion, in my view.
I mentioned that Twitter account that is linked to him that shows he has some pretty strong views on positions that have been taken by the Vice President J.D. Vance and just the administration overall. One with that article that said J.D. Vance is wrong. Jesus doesn't ask for us to love for others. Since he was elected, I should note the president and vice president have both sent him well wishes today. But I wonder if you hope the new pope shares that view, that opinion with the administration now that he is the pope?
Well, look, the Pope is beyond politics. I mean, not that there's no politics in the job, but I'm sure the Pope has got things in his Twitter account that I might not like, and he might have things that J.D. Vance doesn't like. Catholic means, as you know, universal. It's a universal church, people all over the world. The one thing I really love about the church is when I go to Mass on Sunday, there's not many places in our life these days where you can drive through the parking lot and there are bumper stickers of all political persuasions. We often self-select, but not as Catholics. And so, look, it's an enormous burden that is on his shoulders. I think his life has prepared him for it. He'll probably probably say things that all of us might tussle with him on, but if he's making us think about our faith, if he's making us think about our responsibilities toward one another and toward God, I mean, what more could you ask for a pope?
President Trump congratulating newly elected Pope Leo XIV.
What greater honor could there be? That we were a little bit surprised, but very happy. It's just a great, absolutely great honor.
The new pope's predecessor, Pope Francis, of course, was a vocal critic of President Trump, especially on the topic of immigration. So will that be the case for Pope Leo II, for whom this has been a major issue? David Culver, who was in the crowd when the Pope was announced, has covered immigration issues extensively. And David, this is going to be a crucial issue to watch. It is an issue that it appears to be very near and dear to Pope Leo and what he cares about the most.
Well, remember the two languages we heard from him up there were Italian and then Spanish, and mentioning Peru in particular. One thing that stood out to me in that moment also was there was a young woman who was nearby, and she seemed disappointed amidst all the excitement and joy, and she said, oh, an American, oh, but he's focused on Latin America. And another woman came by and goes, yes, a Latino. So there is that sense that this is perhaps an American pope, but you're also talking about a pope of the Americas.
Americas,
exactly.
Yes.
And that's resonating from the folks that we're connected with down there. But also down there were some of those who were thinking about the next generation of those who are going to be pastoral leaders within the church.
The smoke signaled, and the crowd responded.
Oh my gosh.
Thousands flocking into St. Peter's Square, waiting, watching. Then, the moment. An American representing both the United States and Latin America, stepping onto the balcony as Pope. This is all you could see from here, but it didn't matter. You were here. You were living it.
You can still see the smoke.
Yes, it's white smoke finally.
Hours earlier, before the smoke, before the crowd, before the cheers, we were across town at the Pontifical North American College.
So Santa Marta is right over there.
Oh, wow. From a quiet rooftop with a clear view of the Vatican, Father Anthony Legato and his seminarians were preparing to witness history, not knowing at the time how close to home it would hit.
Now, which one of them is going to be anointed by the Holy Spirit to be the next Holy Father? That the Spirit knows. That's already been decided.
But they would have to wait for the reveal. Fortunately, patience is something 30-year seminarian Reed Robinson understands well. He's waited a long time to wear this collar.
I've never had a moment when I didn't want to be a priest. So before I can remember, I always wanted to be a priest. I remember when I was a little kid, I couldn't wait for First Communion so that I could start altar serving. There's pictures of me when I'm 7 years old, like this high, wearing the white, walking down the aisle, helping the priest out.
Now living in Rome, far from his home in Tennessee, Reed knew exactly where he needed to be when the time came.
Actually, there was a note sent out to our university that should there be white smoke while you're in class, everyone is free to go, including the professors. It won't be counted against you. And actually, you should go as fast as you can down to the square.
And that's what they did, pouring into St. Peter's Square, boosted on shoulders, climbing over barricades, all for a better view. But it wasn't about what you could see so much as what you could feel, the weight of the moment, the unity around you.
Wow, yeah, American.
Only after the crowds began to clear did we spot a familiar face, Reed, all smiles, still stunned.
It's such a blessing to be. Standing here in the square, I'm looking at St. Peter's. My walk home is 5 minutes. I can't thank the Lord enough. It's such a gift to be able to be here, be with y'all, be with 40,000 of my closest friends.
Now to say there's an American Pope.
Oh my goodness.
Reed, how do you process it?
Just, smile and pray. Smile and pray. It's exciting. We're sent here to Rome. The American College was originally sent here and founded so that men could come and grow in love for the Holy Father. And now it's, after doing that for 3 years and coming to love Pope Francis, being able to mourn his loss, and then now welcoming an American Pope, it's incredible.
Take me back to the Reed Robinson as a 7-year-old altar server. Did you imagine this moment ever?
Never. No, I could not have imagined it. Goodness, yeah, it's the biggest surprise. Yeah, being here for this moment especially.
He did skip class though, Aaron, and that was baptismal class where they had baby dolls that they were supposed to practice doing a baptism. but he says they'll make up for that later on. And he's also excited about recruitment going down. He said this is going to be incredible.
Which has been such an issue in the U.S. Catholic Church. That's incredible. What an endearing young man.
Fun to be with him.
Yes, yes.
You know him. I don't want to say well until you tell me how well you know him. But let me ask you this. I mean, everybody's now going to be trying to figure out what he believes and where to put him in these ideological categories. And some people on the far right seem to think that he is in the Pope Francis mold, meaning something that they don't like. Do you think that that's true?
I think he's in the Pope Francis mold in that he supports many of the social issues that Pope Francis did, especially immigration and climate change, and certainly care of the poor. I mean, this man chose to be a missionary, to go to Peru, to give his life in service. And so he went to the peripheries as far as he was concerned. And in that way, he's very much like Pope Francis. But the way he even came out on the balcony, remember Pope Francis came out just in the white soutane. He came out like Pope Benedict came out, you know, with the mozzetta, the red stole, and the choir stole.
Was he wearing red loafers?
We don't know. I didn't see the loafers. But I mean, I just think that he's really, what he said is, I'm a bridge builder. I want to continue in that tradition. He said, God loves everyone. I come to bring peace. Peace be with you. So he's very much in the mold of Pope Francis, but I wouldn't say you're going to see him like on flights coming home with impromptu press conferences saying stuff that's going to be quoted immediately the next day.
Yeah.
He took an hour almost to write that text. He was deliberate in what he said, what he wanted to say, and so he's a very thoughtful man.
But some of these social media posts that are on this account that has his name, essentially, they very specifically, I mean, the last time actually you were on the show, Father Beck, we were talking about this, J.D. Vance's vision of what the Catholic Church ought to be about. And it criticized that in the same way that Pope Francis did. And I think a lot of MAGA people see that as something of a betrayal. I just want to play, this is Jack Posobiec. He's actually at the Vatican right now covering this for some right-wing outlets. He's a very loud voice in conservative spheres. He's traveled with the defense secretary and other folks around President Trump. And here's what he had to say.
I'm not going to mince words. This is not the election that conservatives wanted. God save the church. Will this Pope continue to antagonize President Trump and J.D. Vance? The choice of an American Pope, it is clearly a reaction to President Trump. And I honestly can't see this read in almost any other light.
A reaction to Trump?
Well, a couple things. Number one, I agree with the president. I think it's amazing that we have an American Pope. And whether he has said certain things that I may or may not agree with politically, it's great for the United States of America because I think the church here is growing. And I think it would be amazing if he came back to the United States and had a massive rally in Chicago and allowed all these Catholics and Christians to come and celebrate the fact that we have a growing faith community in the United States. That's number one. Number two, I think it's really hard to apply American political constructs to everything. You know, if you believe what the Catholics and the Cardinals believe, the Holy Spirit guided them to pick this Pope. Am I right, Father?
That is true.
They didn't pick him because he wrote an op-ed or retweeted something. They picked him because the Holy Spirit guides the Cardinals to the correct answer on who's going to lead the church and who's going to be the heir to St. Peter. And so I think that's
very good for a non-catholic.
Well, my wife's a Catholic. I just think we have to. I just think we have to respect that. And you know, I'm a person of faith and a Christian, and I think we have to respect the divine intervention.
So I got to tell you, I think the first miracle of this Pope is that I agree with you.
Hey.
I think it's like I've been watching the coverage all day, all afternoon. And we keep talking about him being American and what this means for American politics, because we in America, here in the United States, we think we are the belly button of the world. If you go and look at the footage and the coverage in Peru, they're talking about him being the first Peruvian Pope and another Latin American Pope. There's 1.4 billion Catholics. I think part of the reason that he was chosen is because he is an international Pope. I think part of the reason that he was chosen is because he is a continuation of the things that Francis did. Because, listen, you can't live in Peru. If you've ever been to Peru, you cannot live in Chiclayo, Peru, which was his diocese, for 20 years, and not have a feel, not have compassion, not have walked the streets with the poor.
And he has dual citizenship as well.
And he has dual citizenship, right.
Can I piggyback on something that Scott said at the very beginning? Because I'm agreeing with both of you guys, in that I think that it's naive, is probably the best term, to look at the election or the conclave that selected this Pope through the lens of American politics. You're looking at an institution that literally outdates your American political structures or dynamics. And so first,
it outdates America, period.
Correct. And so I think that looking at it through that lens, I think is just wholly inappropriate. The other thing, though, is as you're talking about him being the first Peruvian Pope, one of the things that I look at is the fact that his grandparents were Creole. Right? And he took the name of Pope Leo, who in 1988 gave an amazing speech, an edict condemning slavery, becoming an abolitionist, right? Mm-hmm. And so there's so many layers to this individual, not just coming from Chicago, but who his grandparents were, or coming from the 7th Ward in New Orleans, and actually assuming another identity and going through and turning the pages of complexity. And I just think that today is a great day that maybe instead of chastising him for being too woke or too liberal. And that when I see Laura Ingraham or Laura Loomer chastising him for being woke or tweet about that or too liberal, I was like, I just want to introduce you to Jesus if you think he's too liberal.
Look, I think I think there's two things here. One, we'll see. We'll see what type of Pope he is going to be. We'll see if he gets involved in the politics. I hope he cares more, and I think we're going to see that he cares more about having people come to faith and come to church and to get together and to love one another and to be missionaries to people. I know what's happened with religion in this country, and a lot of younger people have walked away from the church. I hope that having a Pope from the United States of America inspires people to maybe go back to church.
But he has to be in politics in some way if they affect social issues.
And I understand that.
That's what I was going to say.
I get that. But the thing is his job to walk out there day one and to be political.
Do you think that if he does, as the past Pope had, speak up on things that are in the politics, especially on this issue of migration that's happening globally, not just in the United States.
My question is this: is it personal politics or is it the church? And I think there's a fine line there.
I think that he would argue that is doctrine.
That being Pope and being President of the United States are two completely different things, and we can't judge them with the same spectrum, right? I mean, what were the things that Francis did that I think endeared him to so many people? He did things like every night he called the church in Gaza and asked them how they were, what they were eating, how they were doing. It doesn't mean that he was pro-Gaza. It means that he cared about the Christians suffering in Gaza. And I think that's very much part of the church. We can't, here in America, in the United States, for some reason, we want to see everything through, are they pro-Trump or anti-Trump? Are they conservative or are they liberal? Are they woke or anti-woke? He is a worldwide leader.
Which, by the way, to your point there, I think this is exactly why I think there's some people tonight that should give some credit to President Donald Trump for the way he responded. Because I think that's probably maybe a little different than what he would have said in 2016. And I think he's a guy now that kind of looks at certain moments like this and says,
respectfully.
But hold on, let me finish. What I'm saying is, you look at what he said, saying this is a great day. He actually took politics out of his President of the United States of America, which most people were wanting him to get involved politically.
Before he knew about the tweets against
No, trust me, I'm sure he knew about him. I have no doubt he was well versed in what he had tweeted out before.
That bar is extremely low. And I think by setting the bar...
But can you give a little credit if you say even... So in other words, even when Donald Trump does something right, on the Pope, you're now saying, I'm still going to criticize him.
No, because, this is not an issue of politics. This is an issue of things like love and empathy and truth.
Then why don't show some of that towards the president when he gets it right on a nonpartisan issue of the Pope?
I'm not going to simply give you credit for coming out and doing something that you're supposed to do. One of the most amazing things about this spiritual or religious journey that we're on is it's not the way we profess it. It's not the way we wear it on our sleeve. It's not whether or not you can quote James or Ecclesiastes. It's not those things. It's how you walk. and whether or not people can see God in the way that you walk. And so people
I
still
think,
have
look,
those
I
questions
think
about.
Donald Trump's a very different man since the assassination.
One second. Let me just wrap this
The
up.
point I was making.
Hold on.
where we
I just
in
wanted to
in
put
the
a button
United
on it.
States think we are the center of the universe. Who cares?
I just wanted to say
Listen,
that.
Let me let
Catholics in the,
let me let
in the
Bakari
world,
finish his thought.
Catholics in the world are celebrating this choice, and you know one of the things that was wonderful today
Or not.
was when we saw in St. Peter's Square flags from all over the world, and just this feeling of elation was this when this new pope was chosen. You know, it is something that I think is very Catholic. Any Catholic that's ever been in the presence of a pope, even if it's been with me, and believe me, I'm a skeptic and I'm flawed. I'm a very flawed human and a very flawed Catholic.
Don't say
but you
so.
can't
Don't say
help.
so.
I'm not going to confession.
Forgiveness right there.
He's pulling you into that confession.
You
Friday
can't help
morning,
but be
10:30.
touched by like the wave of spirituality of millions of Catholics.
I agree.
Feeling what they're feeling. So when I tell you, can we just please stop looking at this through the spectrum of Donald Trump and the United States? This is global. This is spiritual. This goes far beyond that.
The seagulls hardly noticed what the whole world could not miss, that the smoke on the Sistine Chapel roof brought news. It came at first from thin air, then in Latin, a language of the church, but far older than that.
Annuncio vobis gaudium magnum.
The first words brought a hush, then a roar, as the square and 1.4 billion members of the Catholic faith all around the world understood what was coming and waited for this.
Habemus papam.
Habemus Papa, we have a pope. Historic words, then, in the very next breath, history made.
Eminentissimum, ac reverendissimum Dominum, Dominum Robertum Franciscum, Sancte Romane Ecclesiae, Cardinalem Prevost.
Robert Cardinal Prevost, American of Chicago, South American by way of Peru, and the first all-American pope. It took 2 days of voting for the conclave to make its choice, and for St. Peter's Square, which has gone in just weeks from Easter celebration to the mournful majesty of burying one pope, to ring out in joy again at the naming of the next. Leo XIV, his name, according to the Vatican, a nod to Leo XIII, who ushered in the Church's modern social mission and was Pope for some 25 years before he died in 1903. This Leo, our modern-day Leo, came to the balcony wearing the traditional red cape that Pope Francis refused. And though raised in the U.S. and looking out on more than a few people waving American flags, he spoke first in Italian, then in Spanish, but not English.
La pace sia con tutti voi.
Peace be with you all.
Fratelli, sorelle carissimi.
Dearest brothers and sisters,
Questo è il primo saluto del Cristo risorto.
this is the first
Il buon
greetings
pastore
of the
che ha dato
resurrected
la
Christ,
vita per il gregge di Dio.
the Good Shepherd who has given up his
vorrei
life
che questo
for God.
saluto di
And
pace
I should also like
entrasse
this
nel
greeting
vostro
of
cuore,
peace
raggiungesse
to enter
le
our
vostre
hearts
famiglie,
and
a tutte
your
le
families,
persone,
and to all
ovunque
those
siano,
people, wherever they
a
are,
tutti i popoli, a tutta
all
la terra.
peoples
La
throughout the
pace
world.
sia con voi.
Peace be with you.
He thanked Pope Francis, who was a close ally. He pledged to lead a missionary church, a bridge-building church. Then, in Spanish, the language of both Francis and his adopted country, Peru, the new pope closed with this.
Allora vorrei pregare insieme a
And
voi.
I should like to, therefore, pray together with you. Let us pray for this new mission, for the entire church and for peace in the world. And let us ask for this special grace from Mary, our God.
Ave Maria.
Joining me now, CNN Vatican correspondent Christopher Lamb, who witnessed this historic day overlooking St. Peter's Square. What did it feel like to be there in that moment? And were you surprised that he did not speak in English? What do you think the message being sent through that was?
Well, Anderson, I think there was a message there. Of course, the first American Pope addressing the crowd in Italian and Spanish, referencing in particular his diocese in Peru that he led for many years. So I think there was a clear message to say that, yes, he's an American Pope, but he's a Pope who spans national borders. I have to say, I was stunned and very surprised when I heard that Cardinal Prevost had been chosen as Pope Leo XIV. There had been some speculation of his candidacy, that he was looking strong. I had reported that, and I had heard from several cardinals that there could be an American Pope, and that nationality was not going to be a handicap, as it might have been in the past for other strong candidates from the US. But when I heard that Prevost had been chosen, it really was a huge surprise, a stunning moment, Anderson.
And what more do we know about his what kind of a pope he may be? I mean, whether it's based on personality, ideology, beliefs, how is he expected to lead the church?
Well, I think he's going to continue in the line of Francis when it comes to church reforms. He made that clear from the speech from the balcony. I think he's going to try and be a unifier. I've met him when he was a cardinal, met him once in the Vatican, and it was clear then when I spoke to him, he's a very thoughtful person, a good listener. And I think he's renowned as a methodical and capable administrator. I think the big thing that he is going to be tasked with doing is institutionalizing the reforms that Pope Francis has started, whether it's around the role of women, whether it's in terms of a more inclusive church, where it's not just the bishops leading the church, but the people also being part of the mission of the church. I think that's going to be very important to him, but also his choice of Leo after Leo XIII, I think a nod and a sign that he wants to be a pope who speaks out for the rights of workers, for the poorest, economic injustice. Yeah. Of course, Leo XIII was the main Catholic social teaching pope.
Just quickly, do you know if he's going to live in the Apostolic Palace or, like Pope Francis, live in the more modest guest house? Sort of a lot of pressure on that decision, I guess.
Well, that's a big decision for him. I think tonight he's going to be in the Casa Santa Marta. We've just seen some video of him going back to his old apartments in the Vatican near the Casa Santa Marta, I think, to collect some belongings, I presume. He blessed some people and greeted them there. He's got to make a decision about that. That's very significant. But I think he'll be in the Casa Santa Marta for the time being and then make a decision later on.
All right, Christopher Lamb, thanks very much.